A few weeks ago, we discussed the spirit of Canada. Today, we need to discuss the engine. With those words, the conversation shifts from identity to survival. According to Mark Carney, the era of Canada relying on others to power its future is over. He presents a country facing three pressures at once: rising affordability concerns, growing security risks, and an increasingly difficult climate challenge. Together, they form the foundation for what he describes as a fundamental change in direction. But if the destination is energy sovereignty, the real question is what Canada will have to change to get there. And perhaps even more importantly, what compromises will be required along the way. At the center of this argument is a simple but consequential idea. Energy security is no longer just an economic issue. It is national security. In Carney's view, the systems that generate electricity, move fuel, and keep industries operating have become as strategically important as any traditional measure of national strength. That changes the debate entirely. This is no longer only about prices or environmental targets. It is about whether Canada can control its own future in an increasingly uncertain world. That new reality also changes how the government views Canada's relationship with its largest energy customer. For years, Canadian energy exports have relied heavily on the United States. Carney argues that what once looked like a stable trade relationship now represents a strategic vulnerability. Dependence on a single market limits flexibility, weakens bargaining power, and leaves the country exposed when global conditions change. His proposed answer is diversification. Instead of relying primarily on one customer, the government argues Canada must build new pathways to global markets. Projects such as the Trans Mountain Pipeline and new liquefied natural gas developments are presented not simply as infrastructure projects, but as strategic tools. The objective, according to Carney's argument, is to secure better prices for Canadian resources while giving allies in Asia and Europe access to reliable energy supplied by a democratic country. That represents a significant shift in perspective. Energy exports are no longer framed solely as an economic opportunity. They become instruments of geopolitical influence. Diversifying customers is presented not as a preference, but as a necessity. The underlying message is clear. Resilience comes from having options, and nations without options often discover their vulnerabilities at the worst possible moment. But expanding export capacity is only one side of the blueprint. The larger transformation happens at home. Carney's centerpiece is a national electrification strategy on a scale intended to reshape Canada's energy system over the coming decades. His plan calls for dramatically expanding the country's energy infrastructure, effectively doubling its capacity. Rather than relying on a single technology, the strategy combines multiple sources of electricity generation, including hydroelectric power, solar energy, and a major expansion of nuclear power. The reasoning behind this approach is straightforward. As more homes, businesses, and industries transition toward electricity, a stronger and larger grid becomes essential. Infrastructure is no longer viewed as a background issue. It becomes the foundation upon which future economic growth depends. Carney also links this investment directly to household affordability. His promise is ambitious. By 2050, 7 out of 10 households will pay less for energy. The government argues that greater efficiency across the system can reduce long-term costs for families while supporting a cleaner and more resilient economy. In this vision, efficiency is not merely an environmental objective, it becomes an affordability strategy. That promise raises another important question. Can a country invest on such a massive scale while also navigating today's economic and geopolitical pressures? Carney's answer appears to be that delaying investment would ultimately cost even more. His blueprint treats long-term infrastructure not as an expense to postpone, but as insurance against future instability. Yet perhaps the most debated element of this entire strategy is neither pipelines nor power grids. It is climate policy. Carney openly acknowledges a shift in approach. According to his position, the previous path, while well intentioned, is no longer sustainable in what he describes as a more hostile geopolitical environment. Rather than pursuing climate objectives through a rigid framework, he argues that Canada must first preserve economic stability and national resilience. That means accepting a difficult reality. The government argues that short-term emissions could increase during the transition if doing so allows the country to build the infrastructure necessary for long-term success. It is a choice that prioritizes under a single strategic objective, ensuring Canada can complete the transition without placing unbearable strain on its economy or its citizens. Whether that balance can actually be achieved remains the defining question. Transforming energy systems, expanding infrastructure, diversifying export markets, and managing climate commitments simultaneously represents an enormous undertaking. Success would reshape Canada's economic future. Failure would carry consequences measured not just in dollars, but in public trust and national competitiveness. Ultimately, this is about far more than electricity or pipelines. It is about the direction of the country itself. Carney is not proposing small adjustments around the edges. He is attempting to redefine how Canada produces energy, how it protects its sovereignty, and how it positions itself in a rapidly changing world. Whether you see this as a necessary evolution or a risky departure, one thing is difficult to ignore. The choices being made today could shape Canada's economy, its energy system, and its place in the world for decades to come. If you found this analysis valuable, be sure to like the video, subscribe for more in depth coverage, and share it with others who are following Canada's changing political landscape. Most importantly, we'd like to hear your perspective. Is this the right direction for Canada's future, or does this new approach come with risks that outweigh its promises? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.